Good morning, everyone. Like mentioned, my name is Mindy. I work for the Saskatchewan Stock Growers Foundation. I'm just going to give a brief overview of some of the programs that we're offering there. Our main focus today is going to be on our term conservation easement program, especially in regards to some recent changes in Alberta and their funding pools. So I'll focus a little bit more on that and do a quick recap of our other programs towards the end. So Saskatchewan's grasslands, it's not news to anyone in this room that we're losing our native grasslands at an alarming rate. I think everyone here kind of has that collective goal to come together, build these programs, implement them, work with the landowners to make sure that these grasslands will be here for the next generations. So the main question that we have when it comes to building our programming is how do we incentivize these landowners to keep these grasslands intact when they have these other forces coming in, like annual cropping, where they have a little more protection and security in the long run than they do just running cattle. So then we start going through our grassland conservation tools that we currently have available to us. So historically, just a perpetual conservation easement is the gold standard for saving and protecting these grasslands long term. And through these conservation easements, you essentially sell your development and land use rights to whatever agency or organization you're working with on that. There's multiple agencies within Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Montana that are able to put conservation easements on the land. So like I mentioned, all these easements previously had been perpetual. And then when we're talking with these ranchers about how do we keep you guys on the land, how do we keep these grasslands intact, what's it gonna take, they wanted flexibility. Their most important asset is their land. Maybe their children, but the land is number one. That's their security, that's their retirement, that's what's gonna get them through. So we had a lot of hesitation when it came to signing those perpetual easements because they were scared of losing that control. These ranchers that we were talking to when we were developing these programs, some of them had developed a large mistrust for other agencies that were registering conservation easements on land. The big thing was fear of restricted land access, someone coming in and telling them how to manage their land. Ranchers are typically a pretty stubborn bunch, and I can say that because I'm a rancher myself, but we don't want to be told what to do. I mean, we're always open to ideas, but some of us are a little more stubborn than others. So then what other options do we have at this point to incentivize these landowners to keep their grasslands intact? And that's where the creation of the land trust to build more flexible programming that reflects the value of family ranches came in. And that's when the Saskatchewan Stock Growers Foundation was formed. So with our term conservation easement program, it's unique in the sense that it's set for a term length and not in perpetuity. They're still put in place to protect the ecological integrity and value of those grasslands, but with that added flexibility for just a term length instead of forever. Just like a regular easement, they're tied to the land title and transfer with ownership if there's any land sale throughout that easement. And the landowner still retains ownership and control over access and management on that land ultimately. So our term conservation easements really focus on native grasslands and protecting them. When it comes to the term lengths, we have a minimum of 25 years. That's the absolute minimum we'll do. The longer the term length, the more financial incentive we can offer. So if somebody's looking to put a term conservation easement on their land for 30 years or 35, the longer that term length is, the more we can offer because of their commitment. Once that term length expires, say they put a 25-year easement on a parcel of land, and that 25 years is up, they have the option to then renegotiate and sign another one, maybe move into perpetual, or maybe just walk away completely. So at that point, the landowner can make changes to land use if they feel necessary. If the land is sold during that easement, like I said before, the next landowner must abide by those restrictions until that term length does expire. And then when it comes to those restrictions, it's fairly straightforward. It's a no break, no drain, and no development policy. So we don't want you cultivating the land, we don't want you breaking it, we don't want you digging up resources, things like that. The whole idea of these easements is to protect that ecological integrity of the land. So any activities that potentially degrade the land, we want to avoid. When it comes to development, we're a very rancher-first organization in the sense that if you've got old corrals, old buildings on that landscape, and you're just trying to maintain them as is, we will still allow that. We just don't want any new development. And then the fun part, financial incentives. So we use a fair market value system. Financial compensation is a payout based on a range. So right now we're 24 to about 30% of what a landowner would receive for a perpetual easement. Currently, with the work that we've been doing and some of the assessments that we've completed, or appraisals that we've completed, these native grasslands are going for anywhere around like $1,500 an acre. So once we've done these appraisals, because we have that variation in term length, the payment will vary. So it's not, I can't just come to you and say, we'll offer you X amount of dollars per acre because we have all these other factors coming in. So right now the payments that we've offered vary from anywhere from $100 to $300 an acre for these easements. And then we're also exploring other options when it comes to determining that compensation. So we've done some research into like an income-based difference approach. So we've had some studies done on income-based differences between cow-calf operations and annual cropping, and the difference that income looks like over 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. I mean, when you see that actual number on paper, it is quite shocking, but it's no surprise to anyone that with all the securities in place when it comes to annual cropping sector, that they're going to make more money typically, or historically they have been. Now that cattle prices have flipped a little bit, things might be changing, but we have looked at some other ways to potentially determine compensation. So we are the first term CE program in Saskatchewan and potentially Canada. We can't confirm that right now. But there's just a general lack of structure to base our program off of. So we were really kind of on our own when it came to this. So we were starting from square one. We were looking at what they were doing in the states. Some states allow term easements, some don't. It really varies a lot once you get across the border. So we were kind of looking at what they're doing, how we can apply that up here, if it's working, if it's not. And then that kind of goes back to that structure for payment. We're trying to figure it out as we go, essentially. We're new, we're still getting our feet wet. We're trying to figure it out and do our best. And with that financial incentive varying due to multiple factors such as the term length, we can also potentially offer more to landowners if they're maybe in an area that's more prone to urban expansion, oil and gas development. We have a lot of helium exploration in southwestern Saskatchewan as well, potential for gravel pits, or if land is identified as critical habitat. So those are all factors that come into play when we're trying to determine the payment. And currently for our term CEs, they don't qualify for the National Eco Gifts program, so we just have to pay it out in a lump sum. Again, that's one of the things we're working on. We're trying to get recognized when it comes to that, but we're just not at that stage yet. We're still very new, but there's work to be done. So with our term conservation easements, we don't require any specific management on the landowner's behalf. The goal is to really maintain the property in current or better condition. I mean, better is always best, but we put a lot of trust in the landowners that we work with that they're gonna do right by the land. If the land's not doing well, they're not gonna do well. So we tend to work collaboratively with them on that. We still allow haying and grazing on land under easement. Again, as long as we're not going backwards in our range health, we're pretty lenient. And then communication is key. I like to think that we're pretty easy to work with. So a lot of these ranchers that we have signed easements with, they're a phone call away. We'll go and sit and have coffee with them at their table. It's just a very open line between us and them. But there has been challenges. Like I said, this is one of the first programs like this potentially in Canada. So we're still figuring out. We're a young agency. The Stock Growers Foundation first came to be in 2020, so we're still very new. We only have 5 staff members, and only 2 of those are actual full-time employees, so we're all doing our best. So when it comes to completing assessments and reports with our easements, along with all of our other programming, we're very busy. And then, of course, there's always funding challenges. So again, I'm sure most people in this room are pretty familiar with funding challenges. We're always looking for more. And then having that term CE potentially recognized under that eco-gifts program would be really nice to have. So those landowners have that option. Instead of just doing a lump sum payment, they could potentially do some tax receipts as well. And then we're just continuously reassessing how we're incentivizing these landowners. What does that structure look like? Are we paying them enough? We've had a ton of interest in the program. It's been really awesome to see. Currently we have over 20 landowners, which is roughly like 20,000 acres of easements that are interested in this program. We've completed 6 appraisals. That sits around 8,000 acres. That number has changed. It has gone up now. And due to the high demand, we have to prioritize our funding because we're working with limited funds, so we have to prioritize the best sites in the end. So it would be awesome if we could just work with everyone, but unfortunately right now that's not the case. And our board of directors has approved over 6,000 acres of conservation easements, which is a little over $1 million paid to landowners. So these term conservation easements, we believe they fill a need when it comes to conserving grasslands and protecting them in the long run, with an added flexibility to it. So landowners are maybe a little more willing to work with us. Because like I said, there's that hesitation coming from a lot of landowners on signing perpetual easements. Whereas if we sign a 25-year easement with a landowner, and then that next generation's coming up by the time that first easement is about to expire, maybe at that point they see, well, we're not such a scary organization. They've already kind of got their foot in the door, they know us, they've been talking with us, they realize that it's really not affecting what their day-to-day management on that operation looks like, and they have the opportunity to benefit financially through multiple generations. Because once you renew that, or renegotiate and renew a term CE, you're eligible for another payment. Whereas before with perpetual CEs, it's just that initial landowner that gets that payment, and then all the other landowners after still have to abide by the restrictions. So it's just another tool in the toolbox that we can potentially use to help keep these grasslands alive. We did officially sign our first term CE. It's down by Fir Mountain, Saskatchewan. It's about 640 acres of pristine native grasslands for 25 years. We're very excited about this. It really told us that we're doing something right. These landowners are interested, they want to sign, they want to work with us. And to our knowledge, that's the first term CE signed in Canada. So it was very exciting. We've still got a lot of work to do. We've still got a lot of landowners to potentially work with, but getting that first one out of the way was kind of a huge weight lifted off our shoulders. So our next steps, continue to offer the program is the big one. We have this interest, let's carry on with it, let's continue this work. We want to increase our focus to the rest of the province. Right now we're heavily focused in the southwest corner just because of the amount of native grasslands in that area, but we're looking on branching out more. And then explore potential partnerships with the other agencies and try to get more funding in the hands of those landowners that are stewarding those lands. And then another part is just gathering feedback on how our programs are doing, what they think of it. Give us the honest truth, tell us what we could be doing better. So aside from our term CE program, we do offer some other programs as well. Oh. Sorry, I just realized that was repetitive. So we have habitat agreements that we'll also sign with landowners. These are not tied to land title. So our habitat management agreement is where we have funding available for landowners to improve and maintain the health of their grasslands. So that could be cross-fencing, wildlife-friendly fencing. We do some invasive weed management projects with landowners, water development. We also do offer perpetual easements, and we kind of work in partnership with some grass banking programs with South of Divide Conservation Action Program and Grasslands National Park. And then we also have habitat restoration projects available. So we ran a reverse auction for grassland restoration. It's where landowners would place a bid for what it's worth to them to convert land, cultivated land, back to perennial cover using a native species blend. It needed a commitment of 30 years under that perennial cover for the landowners to qualify for the program, and they expressed a bid as a $1 per acre amount. So when it comes to this, the landowners would sit down, determine what's it gonna cost for them to convert that land back, fuel, if they have to rent equipment, if they need to do some weed control or spraying beforehand. What are all those factors that come in for all that prep and maintenance on that land? And then that's where they figure out that $1 per acre amount. And then once we received these bids, we compared them using Environmental Benefits Index. And it factors in grassland bird habitat expansion, soil carbon sequestration, and increasing connectivity between existing native grasslands. So we use that as basically a way to compare all of these because we receive bids from all over the province, all different soil types. And this EBI, or the Environmental Benefits Index, really helped us figure out the best way, because we're working on limited funding with this project. What's the best bang for our buck while we're still making an impact on the land? And then the winning bidders received a uniform payment. So we ran 2 different rounds. In the first round, we had 14 landowners place bids, and it was about 2,700 acres in total. We signed 6 agreements and are working on converting about 600 acres of cultivated land back to native species with that first round. In the second round, we had 16 landowners place bids, and it included over 4,700 acres. We had 5 successful landowners from that and about 700 acres that are going to be restored. So we had a lot of interest in this. It was nice to see. Previously in Saskatchewan, there had been programs like this where you get paid X amount to convert land back to perennial cover with native species, but there was very, very low uptake. I mean, the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture ran a program for years, and I think over 10 years they had 3 applicants. So we just wanted to try something different. And this reverse auction, it's a new concept. They've done a few in Alberta that I'm aware of. In Australia, it's been done as well. But it was new to us, so again, we're trying to figure out the kinks as we're going. But if you have more questions about that, I can talk with you later. It's kind of a complicated program to explain and condense in a couple minutes, so I apologize for that if I'm leaving you guys confused, but just come talk to me after and we can sort out the details. And then, of course, I have to mention our program funders. The Weston Family Foundation is our biggest funder. They've really supported us from our inception to now. And then we also received some funding from National Fish and Wildlife and Environment and Climate Change Canada. So we couldn't do this work without them. And then I've got my contact information up there. That QR code just sends you a YouTube video about our first term conservation easement and our release on that. But yeah, you can find us all on social media, and I'll be around today, so don't be afraid to come chat me up, and then we can talk about programs and concerns. Thank you.